Deepest, Darkest Secret, Chapter 2. Once back in his vehicle, Troy buckles the boy in, starts the engine, and turns up the heater. He tries again to make conversation, asking his name, his parents' names, and his address. His questions still go unanswered. The child is a zombie, staring straight ahead with that lifeless expression. Knowing that without this information, there won't be much they can do at the station, Troy heads to the hospital. He knows he'll have to get the Department of Children and Family Services involved. DCFS will be able to help find the child's parents, or if they can't, a home for the child. The 3-mile drive takes no time at all since there's no traffic. Troy pulls up to the emergency entrance and parks. He calls in a 10-7 to dispatch and gets out of the car. Taking the boy's small hand in his, he guides him out of the car and into the emergency room. The hospital is slow tonight, another blessing due to the incoming weather. He recognizes the receptionist on duty as Brittany Bro, his former high school classmate. In a town this size, he recognizes almost everyone, knows their whole life story. His graduating class was only 53 students. "Hey, Troy," Brittany calls out to him in one of the strongest southern drawls Troy has ever heard. "Brittany, how are Ryan and the kids?" he asked politely. "Oh, same old thing, different day. Charlie's growing like a weed. He'll be 19 months this Friday. Marie started a little preschool program this month. Now she's turned 4. Time goes fast when you got kids, Hi, Cindy. 6 months along now. Says she's ready to meet the little fella and start being a mom." Troy's sister Cindy has been miserable for the past 6 months. Her morning sickness was never just in the morning. She's had morning, noon, and night sickness. "Man, I know how she's feeling. Who's this little guy?" Brittany asked, changing the subject. "Well, I don't rightly know. Found him walking down Kuzan Street all by himself. He won't say a word to me." Troy explains the situation to Brittany. Brittany tries her hand at getting the boy to talk. "Sometimes all it takes is a woman's gentle voice to soften him up, making him feel more comfortable," she explains. Troy isn't sure he would describe Brittany's voice as gentle. "Hi there. My name's Brittany. What's yours?" she begins. When he doesn't answer, she says, "Aw, now you're too cute to be all quiet like that." After a few more questions and compliments, she gives up. She has no luck either. The boy's expression is the same as the first time Troy laid eyes on him. Non-existent. "Well, that's a pickle you got yourself in, Troy. Why'd you bring him here?" "I didn't know what to do with him. I knew if I took him to the station, there'd be no way to identify him or his parents. Not like he has an ID on him. So unless someone recognizes him, we're kind of stuck. On a night tonight, even if I can get in touch with someone from DCFS, they won't be making a trip out to pick him up. You think we can get one of the doctors to check him out?" "Troy, I can't even put him in the computer without a name. We ain't allowed to use John Doe for anyone that ain't dead." "Darn," Troy explains. He knows it's not exactly a curse word, but his parents would have scolded him for even that word. "Sorry, Brittany. I've never dealt with something like this before. Guess I should have just headed straight to the station. Thanks anyway. You stay safe tonight. If you don't get off until after the weather starts, take it easy driving home." They say goodbye, and Troy leads the boy back to the patrol car. Quietly, he makes his way back to the station. He's still unsure what they'll be able to do, but he needs to do something. Once inside the station, he takes the boy to his captain's office. Captain Matt Hickman is a formidable figure. At 6'8", he towers over everyone in the precinct. He towers almost over everyone in town. To a child, he's a giant. Most children shrink back and cower against their parents' leg when they see him. The boy doesn't react at all. "It's not bring your kid to work day, Troy. Matter of fact, even if we had that sort of thing, you don't have any kids to bring. So, who you got here?" the captain asks. Once again, Troy explains the situation. He tells Captain Hickman about the boy and taking him to the hospital and the interaction he had with Brittany while he was there. "Yeah," the captain says. "Hospital's not going to take him unless it's an emergency until we can get DCFS involved. I don't recall seeing him around the school." The captain has twin girls that could be about the same age as the boy, give or take. "I'd sure like to get a mental health professional to assess the situation, but we're not going to have any luck getting someone to come out tonight," Troy finishes the captain's sentence. "That's a story I'm afraid I've thought about all night since I found him. What do we do with him, Cap?" "Guess there's not much we can do with him other than have him hang out here. Until we can get DCFS out to take custody of him, we're his caretakers. Take him over to booking and get his picture taken. We'll put out an announcement over the news stations that we found a lost child. Hopefully his parents will see it and come claim him. Of course, Troy thinks. Why didn't he think of that? He guides the boy down to the booking area. Every officer and civilian they meet tries to interact with the boy. No one can get a reaction out of him. The photograph, taken against the same background as the standard mugshot, is creepy. It portrays exactly what Troy has been experiencing. He writes up a short explanation of where he found the child and a statement asking for anyone who has any knowledge of who he is or who his parents are to contact the station. Handing it off to a public relations officer, he asks for her to send it to the major news outlets in the area so they can get it out to the public as quickly as possible. Troy also requests they fingerprint the boy. He remembers that there's a program, the National Child Identification Program, where parents can fingerprint their kids at home and keep the prints as well as other identifying information filed away to provide to police for just this type of situation. Maybe his parents have one of those kits. Afterwards, he takes the child to the community meeting room, unsure where else they can go. Troy has often used the community room during his 2 years on the force. It's the place where the neighborhood watch meetings are held. The captain likes to have a few officers attend those meetings on the off chance someone has seen something important and they're not just complaining about trash cans and uncut grass. It's also where the department puts on their night out against crime socials. Troy thinks most of the people that attend those are just there for the free food and to get away from their children for the night. But there's always a speaker, whether live or streaming. There's a large projection screen on one wall behind a platform with a podium. When the room is not being used, the chairs are stacked against the walls, waiting to be arranged. When it's empty like this, the room makes Troy feel cold and lonely. It's not actually cold, though. With the doors closed and the heater running, it's warm enough to take his coat back from the boy. Troy takes the forms needed to properly fill out the report, and these forms are the worst part of the job, in Troy's opinion. Yes, they use computers to store their data, but the captain is still hanging on to the past. He wants the officers to first fill out the paper forms and then put the information into the computer. It's double work. Almost every officer on the force will agree that it's a waste of time, but orders are orders. There are a few tables set up in the center of the room. Grabbing a couple of chairs, he places them by one of the tables. With a child sitting next to him, he fills in as much information on the incident report as he can. He studies the boy out of the corner of his eye. For the first time, he notices scars on his arms. If the child was an older person, he'd say they were from polio shots, but they're not in the right place, and they're smaller. No, these are burn marks. These are cigarette burns. It looks like someone used this poor kid's arm as an ashtray. He notes these in his report and then moves closer to the boy. He starts looking for other marks or injuries. To his relief, there are no more. Troy is horrified. How could God let this happen? Who could do this to an innocent child? People who hurt children are the worst types of criminals, in Troy's opinion. They don't need to be locked in a cell. They need to be buried under the jail. I'm sorry someone hurt you, little buddy. I don't really know what we're going to do about all this right now, but I can tell you, I'm going to do everything I can so that you never have to go through any of that again. Troy does his best not to let his pure rage over this discovery seep into his voice. Let's say we find you a place to sleep tonight. Before he heads to the evidence room to see if he can find something for the boy to sleep on, he walks him back to booking. Showing the officer the child's arms, he asks if he can take additional photos of the scars to add to the case file. These could be helpful in case some pervert decided to call and claim the kid for his own disgusting use. They'll keep that detail out of the news media for the identification purposes. They make their way down towards the evidence room, where they find Greg Foray. He's a short, stocky, messy-looking man, but friendly enough. Get him talking, though, and he won't shut up. Mostly, he complains about his job, how boring it is, how little pay he makes, the people that annoy him, and the list goes on. If there were a definition for the phrase negative Nelly in the dictionary, you'd find Greg's picture next to it. What's new, Greg? Troy calls out as they approach the desk. Not much, Troy. Just guarding the evidence. Real important job, you know. Who you got here? Greg responds. Troy's already getting tired of this question. He gives Greg the short version of the story. I need to find him a place to sleep tonight. We can't get DCFS out with the impending weather, and there's no way I'm putting him down in the holding cells with the drunks and the other miscreants. I don't suppose we've got a cot, a pillow, and a blanket down here. Greg thinks about this for a minute. Definitely not a cot, he responds. I might be able to find a blanket, but nothing you'd want that little man to use. Anything we find down here like that'll have blood or worse on it. You know, we had a drug bust a couple of weeks ago, and they was using pillows to hide the fentanyl. Man, them drug dealers are dumb. I mean, they didn't think those pillows would be the first place police would look. What kid hadn't hid their candy in a pillow, am I right? Troy hadn't thought about the things that might be on a blanket or a pillow in the evidence room. He hasn't been thinking clearly at all since he found the child meandering down the street. Tonight, he's just jumping on his first instinct. He's not thinking anything through. Why did I even bring him down to the evidence locker when we keep blankets and pillows around for the cells? Did you hear about the body they found out by Lake Pontchartrain? That poor girl. She was wrapped in a blanket. You definitely don't want that one. I don't even want to think about what the filth that's on there. Then there was that fellow they found with the gunshot wound. I think he might have had something like a blanket wrapped around his arm, didn't he? Yeah, you're right, Troy interrupts. I know he must have something he can use. Where do we keep the bedding for the cells? Greg directs Troy to a storage closet on the second floor. Before Greg can launch into another story or complain about why they keep storage on the second floor when the cells are on the first floor, Troy says goodbye and they head off in search of the closet. At least now the boy just follows Troy wherever he goes. He doesn't need to physically redirect him or nudge him to walk in the direction he wants. That's an improvement, right? Troy just wishes he could get some kind of facial expression out of the kid. It's creepy the way he stares off into space, not really seeming to see anything. Prelo is behind the times when it comes to technology. There are no digital locks or key cards you have to swipe when entering or exiting areas in the station. There are just old-fashioned locks and keys. Each officer has a key ring with around 15 keys they carry with them everywhere they go. Upstairs, Troy fumbles with his key ring, trying to find the right one for the storage closet. He has often wondered why this closet even needs a key. Did they think the officers were going to steal cleaning supplies or bedding? In the storage closet, he finds most of what he's looking for. There are blankets and pillows, but of course, no cot. He grabs a blanket and a pillow. These are not high-quality bedding. Both the pillow and the blanket are prison gray and thin. The blanket is a little itchy. He grabs 2 more blankets because one will not keep anyone warm on a night like this. He takes another pillow as well, unsure if the boy likes a thick pillow or a thin one. On a whim, he holds out the pillows to the child. Hold these for me, will you, buddy? Surprisingly, the boy puts out his arms. Troy smiles and lays the pillows in the outstretched arms. Encouraged by the small acts of progress, he tries something else. You know, I'd really like to call you by your name. Kid, buddy, little guy. That's all getting kind of old, don't you think? I sure wish you'd tell me who you are. The boy just stares blankly ahead. Well, it was worth a shot. All right, you're not going to tell me your name? I guess I'll have to make one up for you. My sister's naming her kid Lincoln. Guess she thinks highly of old honest Abe. Should I name you after someone I think highly of? Shaquille? Drew? You like sports? Both of those have ties to Louisiana. More blank stares. Don't like those, huh? Okay, let's try a different route. How about Sam or Joe? I'm thinking Uncle Sam or G.I. Joe, something patriotic. Nothing. Man, most guys have a wife or at least a girlfriend to help them name their kid. This is hard. Not that you're mine or anything. You could save me some trouble if you just tell me your name, you know. No response. All right, you can't blame a guy for trying. Guess I'll go with something from the Bible. Gromere would appreciate that. How about Mark, Matthew, Luke, or John? Those are all good, solid names. They wrote the 4 Gospels. Still, nothing. Okay, then. I'm thinking Luke. Come on, Luke. Let's go find you a place to lay your head for the night. He figures the kid is at least accepting of the name because he follows Troy back down to the community room. Troy grabs 6 chairs. When he places them facing each other in 2 rows of 3, they make a sort of mattress. He places both pillows on one end. It might not be the most comfortable bed, but it'll do in a pinch. Patting the chair closest to him, he says, "Try it out, Luke." Luke sits down on the chair closest to him. "Lie down, man. It's after 11 o'clock. Time for you to go to bed. I don't know how long you were wandering around out there, but a growing kid needs sleep." Luke lies down on the makeshift bed. Troy covers him with one of the blankets. I'll put the other blankets right here in case you aren't warm enough. Troy drapes the blankets over the backs of the chairs. Luke grabs them both and pulls all 3 blankets up to his chin. I'll be right over there. Troy points to the table where he was filling out his paperwork earlier, in case you need me. If I get called out, I'll find someone else to sit over there so you won't be scared if you wake up, okay? He's given the same expression as always, but Luke does close his eyes. He tucks his knees into his chest and wraps his arms around them. Troy watches him for a minute. With his eyes closed, he looks like a normal little boy. Troy doesn't even want to imagine the horrors this child has been through. He silently prays over the boy, asking God to watch over him and to give him the courage to talk. He moves back to the table and starts working on his paperwork again. The night passes slowly. Luke sleeps soundly. Considering what this boy must have been through, Troy's surprised there are no screams or sudden movements. Troy begins to make a mental list of what he needs to do tomorrow.